President Alex, thank you very much. Our presenters today are the leaders of junior achievement, both here in Northwest Ohio and across the USA. Jack Kosakowski is the president and CEO of Junior Achievement USA, the world's largest organization dedicated to giving young people the knowledge and skills they need to own their economic success, plan for their future, and make smart academic and economic choices. Starting as a student in the Junior Achievement Program in Toledo, Ohio, he attended the University of Toledo on a Junior Achievement Scholarship and has since served in a variety of staff positions with increasing levels of responsibility over the past 47 years. I dare spoil the carrot in his presentation, but if I heard the story correctly, it all started because of a girl. He was named president and CEO of Junior Achievement USA in 2007. Jack was appointed by President George W. Bush to serve a 2-year term on the President's Advisory Council on Financial Literacy in January of 2008. And he serves on the board of directors of the Achievement Foundation, is a past member of the United States Commission for UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and serves on the Coalition for Career Development Center Advisory Council. Kosakowski was also named a trustee of America's Promise Alliance. We're also going to be hearing today from Jim Pollock, the president of Junior Achievement of Northwestern Ohio. A graduate of Bowling Green State University, Jim and his family reside in Perrysburg, where he also serves as the voice of the Yellow Jackets, a role that I can certainly relate to. And following a career in the architecture, engineering, construction space, Jim finds himself in the driver's seat for an organization that's working diligently to improve outcomes and opportunities for not only students, but for the broader community. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome back to his hometown. Please give a big Rotary welcome to Jack Kosakowski.
Afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Kevin, for that. It is a pleasure. Back in the days when I was in Toledo, I was actually a member of Toledo Rotary, and later moved to Milwaukee and was a member of the Milwaukee Rotary. So it's really my pleasure today, and I'm going to try and share my screen here without screwing up too much to walk you through. I think I grabbed the wrong one again. Kevin, am I okay here?
Nope, that's perfect.
Oh, okay, super. All right, so what I want to do is really talk about junior achievement back in the day when I was in the program. Many of you, I heard your pre-conversations talking about being involved and kind of where we are today. And so just want to start off with some real basics about the organization. For those of you not familiar, we have a very basic purpose, and that is to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in a global economy. And so everything that we do in our K-12 programs are really focused on accomplishing that very basic goal. And so if you get into more of what we do, the nuts and bolts, we really focus on 3 areas. One is financial literacy, the other entrepreneurship, and the third being work readiness. And really all 3 of those we believe are inextricably linked to young people being successful in the global economy. And of course, in covering those areas, we also touch on citizenship, basic economics, supply and demand, talk about ethics in business and developing character, and clearly about business itself. Now, if you were to look at the organization and do an examination and say, well, what business are you really in? It really falls into 3 categories. One is in the area of youth development, the other economic development, helping create the future workforce, creating entrepreneurs, and the third area is education development. And some of you may wonder, well, how does that happen or why? And really, you hear a lot about experiential learning in education today. Junior achievement was at the forefront of that movement. We used to refer to it in the day as learn by doing. And so we've really brought experiential learning into the classroom. And so the area where JA is most successful is where these 3 businesses overlap, that we're bringing in, we're developing young people, we're helping local economies and national economies, and then in the education arena, helping education become more real and more authentic to kids by conveying to them topics that they're used to seeing every day. But as in all of your businesses, you get down to that big why question. Why do you do this? And so you can see some of the reasons up there. We talk about job creation, the skills gap, filling that, getting young people prepared for STEMs, science, technology, engineering, and math skills, trying to improve high school graduation rates, financial illiteracy, all of these things that you see in your community every day that is creating other sorts of problems. And I tend to think of junior achievement as a preemptive measure. Rather than trying to fix people after there's a problem, we're trying to give them the skills that they need to be successful before they move into that realm. What I would like to do is talk about my personal journey through junior achievement. And this isn't about Jack. What I'm going to try to do is share with you some of the big aha moments that I picked up. As Kevin mentioned, started off, I was a sophomore at Central Catholic High School right there in Toledo, Ohio, when I went down to the gymnasium when the JA recruiters were there. And, at that time, I was an okay student. I was an okay athlete. I was a terrible musician, and I was a terribly shy kid. And so when I went into that auditorium, the entire reason that I raised my hand is that there was this really cute blonde girl sitting right in front of me who volunteered to get involved in junior achievement. And I thought, wow, here is my opportunity to finally meet her. And so that's how it began. And I started off as a student in a company that was sponsored by the Vilvis Company. And it was there that one of the volunteer advisors saw something in me that teachers hadn't seen, coaches hadn't seen, and really took an interest in me. The guy's name is Jim Gimple. He was a salesman there. And by the way, I just finished a couple of years ago my 45th year with Junior Achievement. And they actually tracked down Mr. Gimple for me to, really share with him how he changed my life. So if any of you wonder when you get involved in these volunteer activities, do you have an impact? I am living testament to the fact that, yes, you do. And so I got really involved because of Mr. Gimple in this company, and we used to make nameplates out of plexiglass. And that year, this shy kid was elected vice president of sales for that company. Now, back in 1970, you could actually go around and knock on doors to sell products. And there's no better way to build confidence in yourself than having a few doors slammed in your face. And then finally, somebody buys that product. So I liked Jay so much that first year I joined again, and I was in a company sponsored by Columbia Gas. And again, in the pre-show here, I heard somebody talking about cheese balls. This is where I became an expert in making cheese balls. And I was actually elected president of my JA company that year. And we had record sales and just a tremendous experience, a growth experience for me personally. And my last year, some of you probably don't even remember this name anymore. It's not around. Lamson's, a department store in town, was in their company. And we sold candy and went out into the community. But that's where all of these things I learned in JA really started to click. And, as I look back on it, what I really personally got out of junior achievement, I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about economics. But what I learned is that things don't just happen to you, that you could make things happen. Now, a little bit of my personal background to just give you a sense of that. I grew up in a household where education wasn't all that important. My mom had a high school degree, but that was it. My dad dropped out of high school to join the Marine Corps back in World War II. And he made it to drill sergeant, which probably had an impact on my life as well. But when he got out of the service, He went to work for a company that some of you may remember, Autolite. He later went on to Dura, and he was a punch press operator. And he hated what he did, but he had to go to work every day. He was one of these guys that hated management. He hated the union. He just wanted to get done what he had to get done. And so, as I went into junior achievement, that was my background. And it was because of people like Mr. Gimple that taught me that I could actually make something of myself and affect change in the world that really got me ahead. Now, as a result of that, I received a junior achievement scholarship. At the time, just to tell you how times have changed, it was a $4,000 college scholarship. I went to the University of Toledo, and because I was living at home and working while I was going to college, that $4,000 paid for all 4 years of my education, as well as my books and other incidentals. And so what a tremendous experience that was, because at the time, and it's probably still the case, the business faculty at the University of Toledo had a lot of practical hands-on experience that they shared with me. So it was a huge change in my life. Now, just to give you a sense of who were some of the players back when I was in junior achievement, you see the logos up here on the screen. I think some of those probably are still in town, others perhaps not. But I wanted to highlight a couple. One is the Andersons. The Andersons developed a national reputation with junior achievement because they were instrumental in developing the first partnership company in junior achievement. And so their work with Tom Rutter, who was the president of JA in Toledo at the time, of developing this partnership concept, because all the other companies were corporations, that became used nationwide as the JA company program was rolled out. So the Andersons was instrumental. And at the time, the Ohio Citizens Trust Company, which I believe is long gone or has been absorbed, created the first banking company in the country for junior achievement. And so what all the JA companies would do is pay all their bills through checking accounts that were set up through the Ohio Citizens Bank. Also want to call out Trinova Corporation and Owens Corning. Instrumental on the national board of junior achievement. Lou Saxby, who was with Owens Corning Fiberglass, very engaged and helped develop a lot of the change that took place in junior achievement. And Trinova, Darrell Allen, who was the CEO at the time, also got very involved. So Toledo at this time in history, through the 1970s and 1980s, was a huge national player in junior achievement. In fact, one of the largest operations in the entire country. And it was because of that guy, Tom Rutter, who was one of my mentors. So when I graduated from the University of Toledo in 1977, I took on a role with the local JA organization. Actually, I worked through high school running the after-school program in a center as a center manager. But my first real chance was executive director. And so I stayed in Toledo through, I think I moved in 1988 to take on a new responsibility. But again, the business community in Toledo was just so good to junior achievement and so involved on a nationwide level that was really a building experience for everybody that was involved. 1988, I became a cheesehead, moved to the state of Wisconsin, which was a statewide operation. And one of the big ahas for me at that point was that in that economy at the time, Milwaukee in particular, which is where we were headquartered, was a huge industrial base. And the CEOs, pretty much our entire board of directors in Wisconsin was made up of CEOs, people from Johnson Controls, people from Koss Corporation. And so really grew out. And for me personally, this was a huge learning experience for a national role, because we ran all 72 counties in the state and had a very decentralized approach to working. So that enabled me to really take the next step, which was to become the Chief Operating Officer for Junior Achievement, Inc., it was called at the time, national organization. And again, a tremendous learning experience. But what ended up happening is I moved to the national organization in 2003, and in 2004, we became global. There had been a licensee who was operating Junior Achievement outside of the United States. And at that time, Junior Achievement, Inc. and JA International, it was called, merged to become this entity known as J Worldwide. And so here's this kid from Toledo that went in as the Chief Operating Officer of a national organization in 2003. And in 2004 was the Chief Operating Officer for a global entity. And at that time, I had been to Canada and Mexico, only spoke English. And so it was a tremendous change for me. But what a learning experience. And this is really where a lot of my ahas about junior achievement came out. One of the biggest ahas I had was going to China. And at the time, the president of Boeing China was the chair of our board. And this picture that you're seeing up here right now was in one of the Hetong schools in Beijing. And you'll notice the kids wearing the red scarves, which of course ties to the Communist Party. But JA was so popular because trying to industrial, this would have been 2005, 2006, that I'm sitting there with the CEO of Boeing China, and he casually tells me that the Communist Youth League has endorsed junior achievement. And I must have gone pale because he looked at me like, did I say something wrong? And I said, well, it's just, free enterprise and the Communist Youth League. He goes, wait a minute, it's like the CYO back in the United States. And so tremendous outreach in China because they're trying to get these young people prepared for the future. And a big aha for me was just how much more globally attuned the students were in China and Russia and other countries I visited. And just give you an example, sitting in a classroom in China where the volunteer was in front of the class talking about international trade, all of a sudden, and of course they're speaking Mandarin, I had no clue what was going on, but I had an interpreter. And at one point, all the kids turned around and looked at me and started laughing. And I said to the interpreter, I said, well, what's that all about? And she explained to me that they were talking about international trade and how China would trade goods to South America for foodstuffs in exchange for manufactured goods. And apparently one of the kids raised his hand and said, oh, well, that's like the United States trades oil gets oil from the Middle East and then gives them arms in exchange. And at the time I thought, wow, I wonder if kids in the United States would make that connection. And candidly, it irritated me a little bit, but I thought, well, they're starting to understand how that global ball keeps moving around. So again, a huge aha moment. These kids that I would talk to them, not the age that you see on the screen here, but they not only knew the President of the United States, who he was, what our policies were, but actually were reciting congressmen's names, asking me about different policies. And I thought, how many schools could I go into in the United States and see that kind of knowledge amongst young people? And so throughout China, did a series of presentations on what we do. I personally believe that if communism ever leaves China, it's going to be because private enterprise, I won't call it free enterprise, private enterprise is really giving everyone a taste of freedom. And I'm really pleased to be able to say that junior achievement has been a big piece of that. Another huge learning experience for me, and this was in the, again, probably the mid to later 80s, spent a lot of time in the Middle East. So during 4 years, just to give you a sense, I visited 37 countries in 4 years, helping them introduce junior achievement. In the Middle East, Queen Rania of Jordan is still really our ambassador for junior achievement. The young people you see in that screen are from Palestine. I visited them in one of their schools, which was a terrible sight. I mean, there was burned out buildings everywhere, bombed areas, and these kids had started their own JA companies and were so concerned about were they going to be able to compete against kids regionally and globally. And I'm thinking, wow, they pulled off starting a business in this environment. How can they ever fail? And so that was the kind of impact that we were having, still are having globally with junior achievement. In 2011, the two organizations decided to separate for a variety of reasons. And I decided to go with Junior Achievement USA because there was so much work that could be done. And so we got kicked off with some bell ringing ceremonies, moving on. Mentioned politics. Junior Achievement tries to stay out of politics, but you should know that we play well on both sides of the aisle. So Jay is not a politically driven organization. And in 2019, we celebrated our 100th anniversary. So that not many companies make it 100 years. So for a nonprofit organization to do that, pretty spectacular. And just very quickly, in terms of the history, we started in 1919, but up until about 1975, the only program we ran was the JA Company program. And it was really in Toledo, Ohio, where the first in-school program was piloted. It was a program called Project Business, which really changed the organization forever because we got out of entirely the after-school environment and started moving into in-school. And so 1981, we actually introduced a full semester program in economics. The period of the late 80s through the late 90s, tremendous period of growth. We went from reaching, in the day of the JA Company program, only about 300,000 students a year. You see, in 1988, we started reaching millions of students, so great experience. 2003, we introduced our site-based capstone programs. If you're ever visiting a community and hear about J BizTown or J Finance Park, that's really what it's all about. And then in 2004, as I mentioned, we created that merger, and in 2011 separated. In 2013, we already started to realize that while that volunteer live face-to-face, either in an after-school environment or a classroom environment is so critical, there's other ways to do it. And so we started moving into technology. We agreed that we needed to become a 21st century learning organization. So we invested heavily in a learning management system, digital delivery of programs, which took a while to really take hold, candidly, but has been a tremendous asset now during the pandemic because our volunteers can't get into the schools in most cities across the country, but we are able to beam them in through tools like we're using here today. And then in 2018, we launched and created actually a wholly owned LLC, still a nonprofit, called 3DE Schools. And what we're doing through this is really re-engineering education, making it more authentic. It's not like a charter school. It's the best way to describe it is a school within a school. So we're working collaboratively with public school systems across the country to implement this new concept, and it's focused on low-income students. And the results that we're seeing are spectacular. We don't have time to get into much detail today, but if you want to Google 3DE schools, you're going to see a whole different approach that's being taken towards education. And just give you an idea of the scope of junior achievement, we're divided into 6 regions around the world. Now, these are pre-pandemic numbers. But as you can see in the United States, we're reaching about 4.8 million students a year. Our headquarters, by the way, are in Colorado Springs, Colorado. In Europe, we're based out of Brussels. We're in about 30 countries in Europe, including Russia, which is one of our largest operations, over 4.2 million students. In the Middle East, we're based in Amman, Jordan. In Asia, we're in Hong Kong, and again, covering lots of students. Sub-Saharan Africa, we're in Accra, Ghana. There, interestingly enough, huge focus on out-of-school students and girls, and having tremendous success. And in Latin America, we're based in Argentina, reaching quite a few students. So as you can see, the seeds of JA that came out of the United States are now benefiting young people around the world. One of the questions that has always come up has to do with the diversity within junior achievement. And you can understand, when we were an after-school program for so many years, diversity really wasn't thought of. I think there was this perception to this day that junior achievement is a lily white suburban organization. And the facts you see on the screen here just do not support that. We are more diverse than the K-12 population overall. And in fact, even at our national board level, we're moving to diversity on our board. 12 of the last 13 national board members we've recruited are diverse either in gender or ethnicity. And so we're doing a great job there. But also, and it probably comes as no surprise since most of our deliveries in the school system, is that we're reaching kids that are low income. And as you probably heard the term Title I, one of the descriptors, we're actually in a greater percentage of Title I schools in junior achievement than the country has overall. Just in general, and we have a library of programs. There's 24 different programs that can be implemented through JA. But it basically covers those three pillars, or now we're calling them pathways: financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and workforce readiness. And so we're starting to measure the competencies of the students that are gained and looking to work with employers on alternative pathways. As you know, there's a lot of questions now going on about, is a 4-year college degree an absolute necessity? And I remember my days in Toledo, Pena County Technical High School, getting into that realm with students. So we're focusing on those competencies. We'll be developing badges. And as part of this, the impact that we made, our customers, our business customers primarily for funding, are asking us, well, this all sounds great, but how do you know it's working? And so we do more thorough evaluation than anybody in our space. We look for topical knowledge gain. We're looking for attitude change because we're hearing more and more, we need people with the right attitude, 21st century skill development. And one of the things that has changed in the evaluation world is that we can actually measure intentionality of students. And this comes out of an old theory of planned behavior that come out of the public health sector, but we're now applying that to our JA students so that we can actually demonstrate that not only can they regurgitate this information, but the real test is, are they going to behave in a positive way in terms of managing their money, in terms of getting skills? And so, and then that increase in student self-efficacy. As I mentioned, when I joined JA, I thought everything happened to you, not that you could make things happen. And now all of my evaluators say, Jack, you're really talking about self-efficacy. And that's what we're talking about in our various programs. And so you see, we're already working on future evaluation methodologies, tracking of these students. You know, one of the challenges we have, because we work primarily through public school systems, is being able to measure success and follow them, but we're having some ways around that. Questions often come up, you know, what happens to these kids? Here's a group of just some of our alums, famous alums, from Mark Cuban to Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons, interesting character. He was in JA in New York, actually wrote a book about his success. And he has a whole chapter on everything he knows about business he learned through junior achievement. Mark Cuban has been very instrumental with us in that area as well. But you can see Dr. Sanjay Gupta, not everybody that goes through JA turns out to be a business person. And so those are some famous alumni. But now we want to talk a little bit how we go from I can't to I can. So Kevin, if you have that video ready, that would be great to show that now.
Our young people are not ready for the future. And the breadth of our challenges seems to grow with each passing day. Yet, we believe there's a way to get to the root of these growing issues, with our mission to inspire and prepare young people for success by fostering a belief in themselves and a sense of purpose to overcome life's challenges. Each day brings with it the obligation of financial decisions, choices that affect a person's career, and the security of his or her financial future. Choices that require a set of skills not always taught in schools. And as changes in society outpace our ability to adapt, a new attitude is beginning to prevail. No one can challenge their circumstances without a belief in themselves and a sense of purpose. JA can change I can't to I can through a scientifically proven approach by showing students how money, careers, and business ownership work with the help of volunteer role models and proven programs. A simple shift, a positive attitude armed with knowledge will plant the seeds to thrive in a changing world, giving young people a belief in themselves and the sense of purpose necessary to improve their lives and the lives of those around them. Junior achievement. Empower the future.
Okay, at this point, we have a saying in junior achievement that just like politics, all JA is local. And so it's important what's happening at the local level. And I'm so pleased that we have a relatively new president of JA in Northwestern Ohio who is doing a remarkable job. And so I want to turn it over to Jim Pollock to tell you what's happening right there in your backyard. Jim?
Well, Jack, thank you very much. And before I'm going to share my screen as well, but as I'm doing that, I thought you guys would all find humor in the fact that I saw Mark Arudia commenting in the box there about seeing himself in the background. It just so happens that I found this little gem sitting in one of my boxes here, rooting through history. So there's a good picture of Mark. So I'm sure you'll appreciate that, Mark. It's been sitting here for a while, as scary as that may seem. Well, thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. Jack talked a lot about purpose and why as organizations. What is our purpose? And you heard a little bit about the junior achievement of purpose and the why. And I'm a big believer in the point that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you let that resonate for a second, that's why I'm here. And I would challenge each one of you, which is what I do to our organization, is, why does your organization exist? What is your cause, purpose, belief? Why do you get out of bed every day, and why should anybody care? And those are questions that I ask myself every day. And my personal why is I wake up every day inspired to educate, mentor, and influence kids so together we can change the world. And I truly think we are going to change the world. And we're starting in Northwest Ohio, which is why we have created what we refer to as the Youth Economic Development Engine for our region. So I'll ask you just for a few minutes, for 9 minutes here, that you set aside what you may have remembered about junior achievement from 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, and think with me about where could we be, and where are we going, and where are we going to take this? So when I say we're building the talent achievement pathway in the Youth Economic Development Engine, that's what we're doing. And how did we get here? it's led by societal trends for the last several decades, is that the faulty definition of success equals more robust academics. In other words, if you're going to be successful in life, you got to keep going to school. You got to get more degrees. You got to graduate with a degree. You got to take on an enormous amount of college debt, and that defines success. We've got a generation of kids that I refer to as the Bruno Mars generation. For those music buffs, know that he has a song that says 24 karat magic. In other words, we give kids $24,000 to go off to college. We sprinkle some pixie dust on them and hope that magically they'll figure out what they're going to do the rest of their life. And I've never seen over the last decade that more kids picking colleges and universities based off of which grass is greener and which picket fence is whiter, which has now led to these implications in society that the 6-year graduation rate is less than 60% or hovers just right around that. Our local universities, BGSU and UT, are right in that same realm. We've got $1.7 trillion in student debt, of which has grown 100% in the last decade. We have now created specifically to our region what I refer to as the awareness gap. For anybody that's heard of Mark Perna, for every one job that requires a master's degree, there's 2 more that require a bachelor's degree, and there's 7 more that don't require a degree at all. And Toledo, according to a 2019 Federal Reserve Bank study, Toledo is the #1 MSA in the country for opportunity jobs available. In other words, those are jobs that don't require a bachelor's or master's degree, yet they may require some form of technical training or skill set. But we live in a region that we can't keep telling kids that the only definition of success is a college degree. So imagine, if you would, with me for a minute, that we reframe the narrative from college and career ready to career and life ready. We know as an organization, and this is where I'll get specifically to our region, we have entirely too many kids crossing the graduation banner of high school, having no idea what they're doing next. They're standing there lost, going, what do I do next? What pathway do I take in life? And for too long, we've told kids that the only pathway to success is you've got to go to college. That's the definition of success. And they cannot see all the pathways that exist in front of them, because they haven't been exposed to them. Now, we've identified those pathways as you could go on to the military, you could go on to get a technical skill or a trade skill, become an apprentice, you could go right into the workforce, or in the JA world, one of our pillars is entrepreneurship. You could jump in your own boat and paddle down the river of life and start your own business, or you could end up on the pathway that takes you back to your parents' basement, which we affectionately show as this Grand Canyon of this abyss. And it is over the last few years that we've realized, or as an organization, that we need to create something bigger. You heard Jack talk about the JA purpose, our mission. We have created a cause in which our cause for junior achievement in Northwest Ohio is that we believe we can create a world where every student in Northwest Ohio will graduate from high school with a vision of success and a defined path needed to get there. Again, this is not that college is bad. Please, I want to make sure that everybody understands me, that this is not about college is bad and that we're trying to get everybody to do everything but college. That's not it. That's not it at all. It's just there's a lot of other pathways. College is incredibly valuable, but getting kids exposed to everything else that they can do in life is as valuable as well. So we define future success as building the future talent for our companies and for our region. This is what we are doing now, is 100% about exposing kids and immersing them in learning experiences that get them to better understand all of the opportunities that are available in our region by using our companies and our corporations to help provide learning experiences to help build their future talent. I won't say who this was, but they made the reference to me that students today can't even read a map. They don't understand. If you told them how they were going to get somewhere, they can't read a paper map. They just type in the address in their Waze GPS, and that shows them where they have to go. Well, unfortunately, you can't type future success in your Waze app and figure out where you're going. You have to have mentors along your path. You have to have people that are exposing their experiences and their life stories to help guide you through your journey. this is not, we don't have a fallacy that thinks that every 18-year-old kid is going to graduate from high school knowing exactly what they want to do. That's not it at all. We know that life is full of twists and turns and journeys and mountains to climb and valleys to cross and rivers to navigate and forests to figure out your way through. But we believe by taking the business community and immersing them in the education system, students will start to better understand all the opportunities that are available for them out there. Excuse me. So people usually tell me, well, how are you going to do that? And what does that exactly mean? For us, we know that the education system as it currently sits, so when a student gets off the bus in their kindergarten year, for the next 13 years, they're going to go through an education system that hasn't changed a lot in the last several decades. In other words, they're going to learn about math and English and language arts and science, which are all incredibly valuable skills and much needed. But there's nothing that is exposing them to how those opportunities translate into the business community or shows them what that future success could be. So we are building that 13-year education continuum by immersing our business partners into the school, into the kids' lives, exposing them to the opportunities that exist on the foundational, or I should say on the foundational pillars of JA, which is financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and career development. I won't bore you or go into the details of all the things that we're doing throughout this journey of these 13 years, but I will say this pathway, as you walk down this path when you start in kindergarten, it's predominantly the same for everyone. We believe by taking these learning experiences and exposing kids throughout those 13 years, their eyes will start to be opened. They'll start to see things that they didn't know exist. They'll start to understand our region and our community and the businesses that are in it that are so desperate to build that future talent pool. When we talk to different superintendents from our school districts, the number one thing we get over and over is our kids need the ability to interview, to network. They don't understand how to communicate. They don't have the professional skills. They don't know how to identify and collaborate and solve problems. They're struggling with creative thinking and empathy and how to navigate challenges, certainly now more than ever. So some of the learning experiences that we've created and are rolling out and launching specific to junior achievement one of them is what we call the business of life. And the business of life is providing students a core key critical skills that every student needs, no matter what pathway you end on. And it is a compilation of interviewing and how to create a personal brand, how to fill out an application, how to network, how to understand the basics of financial literacy, how to earn an income, how to budget, how to save, how to spend. And then it's wrapped up with a session on ethics, how to operate personally and professionally with ethics in the business world. It is become one of our favorite learning experiences, one of the most sought after for both businesses and our education partners. Our other big push is the concept that we're calling around life design. And it is all about getting the students in our regions exposed to all the opportunities with the companies in our area. We are extremely excited about the direction that we are going as an organization. A lot of what you may remember from years past certainly exists. The company program currently does not. However, I would tell you we are actively looking to bring that back. As Jack mentioned, that's what started junior achievement in Northwest Ohio almost 75 years ago, I should say 75 years ago, because this year, Junior Achievement in Northwest Ohio, we celebrate our 75th anniversary. So I am very excited to show you this map, to talk through what we're doing now as an organization and how it may be different from what you remember and what you think of junior achievement. Most people, one of our biggest challenges now is most people don't even know we exist, and they perceive us as what we used to be and not the direction that we're going. I'm a big believer in passion lives deep in who you are, not what you do. We have an incredible organization that's dedicated to exposing our kids to the future success in our region to help our companies. I can't imagine leading a better organization at a better time, given what we've gone through as a society over the last year. And we think that, and we truly believe that we're going to start to bring kids together, educate them, and start to build a better and stronger community with all the students coming from different pathways and understanding what those pathways are when they graduate. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for the chance to get up on our local soapbox and tell it what we're doing, but more importantly, why we're doing it. Kevin Mullen, thank you so much for teeing this up. Without you, this wouldn't have been possible. So I greatly appreciate this opportunity.
Open it up if anybody's got any questions. You can raise your hand, type them into the chat. While we're waiting for questions to come in, I guess I'll toss it up to both of you guys. You know, what do you need most? What's the first thing you guys need to be successful here locally?
Oh, that's easy for me to take. I don't know if Jack, you want to take that? I'll jump in. So for us, it's just an opportunity to share our story and help the bigger community understand the direction that we're going now, and help understand our story and what we're trying to do. We always, first and foremost, rely on people. We are a very human capital heavy organization, where a lot of organizations rely on funds, which we do. Obviously, we were private nonprofit, so we do need funding, but our bigger need is people. Just people that want to invest and be a part of what we're doing and pour into kids' lives and be a part of the systemic change that we're creating. So Kevin, you made, and I forgot to make this point, and I will, and Jack alluded to it earlier. You know, for far too many kids in our community, they look at that graduation, crossing that graduation banner as the finish line. And for what I refer to as the underestimated population, they look at that as the finish line, and in reality, it's just the start. And so that has been one of our big pushes. We made a huge partnership and an investment with TPS and the underestimated over 2 years ago, and it is really starting to prove fruits. So.
And I think that holds true anywhere you visit junior achievement. Obviously, funding is needed, but the volunteers, you know, the interesting thing is book learning is great. It has to exist. But what is going to change a kid's life is a story that you share, an experience that you had, that they're going to remember that, and they're going to end up being successful because of it. So if you have the time to give of yourself, to go and teach some kids, you're going to have fun, and those kids, you're going to change their lives.
All right, Rick Arnos has a question. Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. Jack, your story was incredibly inspirational. It's a great story. I wish you could sort of package that thing and share that with all the kids in JA. I think they'd be very moved by it. And Jim, thank you as well. Just some statistics maybe. In terms of JA, you say they're in schools. How many, I mean, it looks like there are about 4 million in this country. I mean, and there are about 5 million school kids per year. Is it about right? So how many kids are you touching through school in the United States? Is it 10%, 5%? I mean, there's just such an enormous need for, I've seen it in my 2 daughters, and just an enormous need to understand basic economics. What's a mortgage? How do you buy a car? Things like that. How many are you touching?
That's a great question. Again, pre-pandemic, because right now the schools are just challenged, but about 4.8 million students a year go through our program, and that's roughly 9 to 10% of the K-12 population. And you hit on a sore spot for me, because we've been in this business for 100 years, over 100 years, and we're only reaching 10% of the kids. And so that's why we moved into the digital space. And the trick that we're trying to find is, how do we provide that same personal connection digitally as you're able to do when you actually go into the classroom? And we're getting there pretty quickly. And once we get out of this pandemic, I think you're going to see that participation start to really increase.
And Rich, if I may chime in on, so we pivoted too. So we talk about everything being in classroom, and Jack talks about the digital model. One thing we've moved to here, and certainly in the last 6 months, is expanding our delivery methods. So we've moved back to after-school programs. So we've been in after-school programs this spring, connecting with kids, because we think that can be a meaningful way. We certainly have the virtual and teachers, but we're also moving towards what I would call as a direct-to-consumer. So now that we're in this virtual space, we're not going to be just reliant on students to get to teachers. It's how do we get to families that may want to get their kids involved, but they're not in the right classroom at the right school at the time. We think we can start to connect with those families, and we also think we can start to do that through business leaders in our community that have families in their organization. Maybe there's a group of employees that have high school students that would like to go through and learn more about financial literacy. Well, it doesn't have to just rely on if they're not in the right classroom or the right school. We envision a space where we could get a consortium, a cohort, for whatever you want to call it, that there may be a handful of kids from Anthony Wayne or Scott High School or Sylvania Northview or Ottawa Hills that go through a learning experience and take part in the program. This virtual world has showed us that it's expanded the bounds of what can be possible. And that's one of the things we're really excited about.
Yeah, two thoughts, and please don't take this the wrong way. In my generation, joining junior achievement wasn't seen as cool. But these days, it seems like it really is cool, because there's, you can learn so much. When our kids, is it a voluntary decision that they do to join junior achievement? You don't have any schools that say, or do you have any arrangements where with the schools, kids that are going through 9th through 12th, they must spend some time in junior achievement just to get a sense of it before they decide to opt out? Or is it always you have to opt in?
You have to opt in. It's still volunteer. And for the most part, even for the last, so I came into this role 2.5 years ago. And prior to that, a lot of what we were doing was focusing in the elementary space. So there wasn't really a lot of high school programming. But we've made a significant pivot to that space here over the last 18 months, because that is one of our big pushes, Rich, to your point. Because those are the kids that need connection with mentors and need to understand all the opportunities that are out there. So we're not anywhere where we need to be right now, but I would say we're actively moving forward in that realm. And
Excellent.
I don't take offense to it either, by the way. I don't take that it's not cool. I get it. But I think we can be cool now, because with the evolution of Shark Tank and entrepreneurship, that's taken a whole new buzzword that didn't exist 20 years ago. And that's one of our wheelhouses. So we're getting a lot more interest. And that's what excites me about it. Where we've had to rely on teachers to get to kids, we don't have to do that anymore. So if you had a group of Rotarians that had high school kids that wanted to be able to learn how to be an entrepreneur, we can set up a program and put them through that, and it doesn't have to be relying on just the teacher at their school. That's what excites me.
All right, we had a couple more questions that came in through the chat, but we are running dangerously low on time. And so, Jim, I'm going to direct you to the chat to address some of those,
Yep.
As well as some folks looking for contact information and hopefully some continued conversations here locally. Jack, Jim, thank you so much. Jack, welcome back to Toledo. Hopefully we'll get you back here in person and get you back to a Rotary meeting at some point in time. And Jim, we're going to have to get you in as a member. That's what's going to have to happen on that one. So.
I appreciate that. I would love to hear some of the people that started this off saying, I remember when I used to do this. I would love to connect with you, because one of the things that we're trying to build is just understand who they are, who the alumni are. There was a big gap and lost in translation, and I'd love to just know who you are. So thank you.